Good evening, Bahamas. I'm KRISTINA McNeil, and this is NB12 for Monday, April 2nd, 2012, broadcasting from the Cable 12 studios on Robinson Road. In news tonight, the Prime Minister calls the PLP's proposed mortgage plan thoughtless. We've got reaction from some in charge of huge mortgage operations. Downtown safety initiatives, more traffic changes, and police investigate an early morning murder. We have those stories and much more coming up tonight. Your NB12 starts right now. Joining us. The Prime Minister is today responding to the troubled mortgage relief plan released by the PLP yesterday. He claims it's pretty much unworkable. KARISSMA Robinson reports.
Calling the Progressive Liberal Party's plan to tackle the mortgage crisis thoughtless today, Prime Minister Hubert Ingraham said his government will put in place a real workable plan that will bring tangible relief to many struggling Bahamian homeowners.
Yesterday, the PLP offered a foreclosure plan for struggling homeowners should it become the next government. The party pledges to obtain agreements from local banks to write off 100% of unpaid interest and late fees for people facing foreclosure. The 10-point plan also includes a 120-day moratorium on foreclosures from banks and other lenders. But the Prime Minister says don't be mistaken. The PLP's plan is designed only to be catchy.
I think it's a pie in the sky, not workable, and you should talk to the professionals in the business. It's very thoughtlessly done, designed, I suppose, to do what it is done, be catchy.
So here's the kind of plan Mr. Ingraham says his government will put in place.
If I have a house and I've been paying my mortgage, and I can't pay now because I lost my job, and I've got my children in school and the rest of it, etc., and I've been paying for years, I was a good payer. The bank has given me every assistance the bank could give, and the bank now wants to repossess. If the government has a plan that could help me, I'd be very happy about that, so I can stay in my house, keep my house, continue to own it. That's the kind of plan the FNM will put in place. The FNM is not going to put in place a plan to deal with people who have not been paying, who could afford to pay. It's a plan for those who can't afford to pay, but who have been paying and who paid when they could pay.
The Prime Minister also dismissed the PLP's claim that he never delivered on a promise to offer help to homeowners back in 2008.
That's not true. That's not true that nothing was done. The banks worked, that is the point. We discussed it with the banks. The banks worked with people, and lots of people got extensions of time, got interest removed, got non-payment of principal, etc. This is now at the end of that process where this still hasn't worked. They still are unable to pay. And this is why the government is coming up with an alternative as a last resort. But no, it is not true to say nothing happened. That's a PLP lie. They're good at that.
Mr. Ingraham says his government's foreclosure plan will be released in the coming weeks. Reporting for NB12, I'm KARISSMA Robinson.
Well, in some circles today, that PLP proposal was branded as a gimmick. But one well-respected businessman who was consulted for his views before the plan was made public told NB12 that it is a creative and effective approach to addressing the mortgage crisis. Candia Dames has this angle to the story.
A lot of reaction today to that proposed PLP mortgage relief plan. Chairman of the Bahamas Mortgage Corporation, Dr. Dwayne Sands, dismissed it as irresponsible rhetoric that is pandering to struggling Bahamians. However, Chairman of Arawak Homes, Franklin Wilson, accused Dr. Sands of fear-mongering. Mr. Wilson said the plan is both realistic and doable. Here's what Dr. Sands had to say about that proposed 120-day moratorium on foreclosures.
It sounds good that, oh, we're going to have a moratorium, but it will have a negligible impact on what people are feeling. Most of the people who are in trouble, their mortgages have been in distress for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, for quite a long time.
There are other key areas of the PLP's proposal, as was mentioned, asking banks to write off 100% of unpaid interest and fees. The party said it would encourage a reduction in interest rates and an extension on the loan repayment period. The PLP said the government in turn would guarantee interest payments of the affected borrowers for 5 years through 2017.
The government guarantee for 5 years of interest. I mean, why? I mean, that's huge. That's huge. See, for me, for a bank, this would be great for someone to sit down with the Minister of Finance and say, let's negotiate these things. This to me it would be a wonderful thing. In fact, it has the potential to set a wonderful model for good governance, particularly in as much as if this approach is, let's work together. Do not impose on me the unreasonableness. Let us cooperate together. And that's what their plan says. This thing is, you have to incentivize the banks. And this plan seeks to do that. The second thing it does is, inherent in this, it talks about working with the banks. And there are a number of aspects in this that the banks would absolutely, we know, they love.
Wilson was referring directly to the PLP's promise to regulate what it says is an abusive salary deduction practice that causes many borrowers to overextend themselves. Sands, meanwhile, said the PLP's proposal would essentially punish those borrowers who are meeting their mortgage obligations.
Understand that there are definitely and clearly some individuals that have found themselves in this fiscal or financial predicament, but you do not want to send the message to the general population that an obligation is to be ignored.
But Wilson stressed that all borrowers will still have to eventually meet all obligations with respect to their mortgages.
A key part of this must be that that obligation cannot vanish. That cannot vanish. If that were to vanish, now we're incentivizing people not to pay.
Now, the banks have already taken note of the PLP's proposal. Chairman of the Clearing Banks Association, Anwar Sandaji, told us today that the banks currently are working very hard to assist their struggling clients. He says the association will have to meet and consider this proposal before any formal response could be given. Reporting for NB12, I'm Candia Dames.
The new critical care block at Princess Margaret Hospital is 20% complete, and officials say the project is on schedule and on budget. Prime Minister Ingram and a delegation today toured the site of the major project, and the Prime Minister says he's pleased. He says the completion of this project will hopefully strike a better balance between the public health and preventative health care sectors in the Bahamas.
We have been too focused, in my view, upon the institution and not as focused upon the causes of the things that cause you to come here, like obesity, like having a balanced meal, like exercising, like clean drinking water, like washing your hands, like collecting garbage, and the whole list of them. And so while we are doing this, we will also be focused upon the preventative side of health. And of course, I've always been disappointed that we have not arrived at a stage with respect to infant mortality numbers that should be expected in a place like the Bahamas. It is our hope and expectation that greater focus will be brought to that area.
CEO of CAVALIER Construction, Richard Wilson, says we should see significant progress on the structure in about a month, but all the work to date has been underground. Wilson also says there have been tremendous challenges so far.
The biggest challenge that we've had is all the services in the ground to keep the existing hospital running. And we've come across a few challenges there, but so far, so good, we've done well.
When completed, the critical care block will cost between $90 and $100 million. The project's completion date is June 2013.